Star Wars 7x7, episode 2399. Today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into spoiler territory for A Test of Courage and talk about the Nihil and what they are after in this book and just how ill-fated it's going to turn out to be. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. Thank you so much for joining me for it. So, A Test of Courage, as we talked about yesterday in the non-spoiler review, that's the middle grade novel released as part of the first wave of books in the High Republic Publishing / Multimedia Initiative. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. We've talked about Light of the Jedi already, and so you know about the Nihil, you know about their situation, about how evil they are and how they don't want the Republic encroaching on the places where they play in the Outer Rim. So that won't come as a surprise when you read about the Nihil that are active in A Test of Courage. Although the interesting thing about that is that when they talk about this multimedia initiative, one of the things that they have consistently said is that you'll get a fuller, richer picture of everything if you are able to and interested in reading and consuming all of the High Republic storytelling media, but they are looking to make individual elements be standalone. And so that kind of works both ways in the sense that if you are only interested in the adult material, if you will, then reading Light of the Jedi, you will get a full and complete story. And it works the other way too. If you're only reading the middle grade stuff and you're reading A Test of Courage, but not going up to Light of the Jedi, then you're also getting a complete story. And yet, not necessarily the full picture of everything that you could know. So in that sense, when you evaluate the Nihil in A Test of Courage, you can do it with the caveat that, somebody who's just reading the middle grade novels are going to get an incomplete picture of the Nihil and what they're capable of. And so when they talk about how they don't want the Republic sticking their nose into the Outer Rim, into their territory, and how they're going to drive them away and so on and so forth, it really does seem like you guys are ridiculous because there's no way you're going to stop this. But by the same token, knowing that it is targeted at that middle grade reader audience, it doesn't have the same, kind of nuance. And so you can see where the challenge would be, at least from that perspective, right? If you are looking at this also having read Light of the Jedi, you understand that the threats that the Nihil are making are a lot less idle in A Test of Courage than they actually sound if you were just looking at A Test of Courage in isolation. So all of that said, let's talk about combining some information between Light of the Jedi and A Test of Courage. In particular, we find out that the two Nihil characters who cause all the trouble in A Test of Courage are part of the chain of command within the Nihil that leads up to this one character, Kassav, who's one of the three Tempest runners that we meet in Light of the Jedi. Kassav, you will recall from Light of the Jedi, was wiped out. Like, his Tempest was pretty much wiped out as a result of a conflict that happened in the final third of Light of the Jedi. And so we meet a character near the end of the story named Cara Xoo, Xoo, and her storm is the storm from which the two Nihil that cause all the trouble in Test of Courage, report to. And her storm is now one of the few remaining survivors that was part of Kassav's Tempest. And so that's going to cause problems for them because now they are just basically out to sea. But Cara decides that rather than just let things go and move on to the next target, she knows that she needs to get recruiting done. And apparently recruiting for the Nihil, it sounds like they're no better than what the First Order was in terms of just snatching people up and indoctrinating them. Although it remains to be seen how exactly the Nihil take people into their group and make them be part of the group. We haven't seen this functionally yet. And, I guess technically speaking, we haven't seen it with the First Order either, so it's hard to say for sure. All we know is that there is some sort of indoctrination, and it's not going to be great. And because of the fact that things went down with regard to the Dallin system, that is where Cara Zhu is going to focus her efforts on recruitment. And so it opens up the notion of continuing this particular storyline. In other words, whereas you might say that The Rising Storm, which is the next adult novel coming out for the High Republic Storytelling Initiative, that's coming in July. And yes, I guess in a way it is technically a sequel to Light of the Jedi. It's not a direct sequel, it's just the next story in the fold. But it sounds like, just the way that they set things up at the end of A Test of Courage, that there is going to be another story that specifically follows on this thread and is going to follow on what happens with Cara Zhu and her activities. But whether Justina Ireland is going to be the person to write it, who knows, because they have talked about how characters are being traded back and forth with other writers and so on and so forth. So just because Justina Ireland started this doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to continue with these characters. In fact, Reith Silas, who is a main character in Claudia Gray's Into the Dark, is going to be in Justina Ireland's next book, which is Out of the Shadows, also a young adult novel. So that's going to be the next young adult novel in the High Republic Storytelling Initiative. But that novel is also going to feature Vernestra Rowe, Vern, and based on the cover, it looks like Avon Staros is going to be part of this as well. And you would imagine that Imri, who was the other Jedi in A Test of Courage, who survived the events, that he would probably be in this one, this Out of the Shadows too. But at this time, there's no information about what Out of the Shadows is going to cover in terms of subject matter. It's just, like, there is a description that says, like, a new adventure in the High Republic featuring such Jedi as Vern Rowe and Reith Silas and many more. So, yeah, a lot to learn still, obviously. And the Nihil will be in that book as well. So we know that much also. But those Nihil, again, remains to be seen. But that right there is what we know about the Nihil and their plans in A Test of Courage, and how that information is filled out by the Light of the Jedi, and what other things we've learned as a result of both books together. And that is going to do it for this episode of the show as well. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.